computer.
Okay.
Okay, so last week I realized that after the class, I realized that I forgot to mention a few things. Um, so, well, to start with, does anyone have a question about the essay for 2 weeks from today? So you should send me the two
Yeah.
images or one image that you're going to be speaking about. You send it to me, and you should send it to me even before you write. It would be great for me to have it. And don't send it at the last minute. Send it before. Um, Sarah, oh yeah, yeah, thanks. I could see you now, whole. You could even adjust it a little more. Adjust it a little more. Higher.
Other way.
That's it. Up more, up more. No, the other
Mm,
way. The other way. The
I
other
know. I think that's as
okay,
good as it gets.
okay. Um, so yes, so send the slides first. Then I'm going to see you on December 3rd, and you're going to be talking about one of the ideas that I gave you in the choice of essays. Um, okay, so I should have mentioned a few things about Kiefer, one of which one of you reminded me of. I'll get to that in a second. But the one that I should have mentioned, which I didn't, um, you, so I'm hearing like a lot of noise here. So make sure you're muted. Okay. Um, so in the 1800s or the 19th century, or generally in the history of art, but primarily in the 19th century, there was a tradition of artists doing very large paintings with some historical or religious overtone to them. And these paintings were like a challenge for an artist to do. And um, their paintings were sometimes called machines, or there must be another word for them. But in any case, it was considered an ideal. And these paintings were predominantly figurative. Okay. So one of the things that for me strikes me as interesting about Kiefer is that he has reinvented this type of painting, but it's almost abstract expressionist, but it's not, okay? But he's almost reinvented this great history painting or this great religious painting. And that strikes me as a kind of interesting irony about his work. Now, at one point in the class, there was some discussion of a work of Kiefer that is in St. Louis. And then later in the class, I think Rita said something about, well, you have to consider the artist's intent. I think that's what you said, right, Rita?
Sure.
Uh, okay, well, you'll understand this when I speak more about it. Um, okay, so here's something we really haven't spoken about, but I remember in one class we spoke about this theme, which I find actually very interesting, but I don't know how to describe it in terms of right or wrong, but I'll just describe it. Um, how much do you have to know about an artist's life to understand the work? Or when you look at the artist's work, is that enough? In other words, you're looking at a painting or you're looking at a sculpture. Is what you're looking at enough, or do you need to know something about either what the artist thinks or what a critic thinks or what um, a museum curator thinks? So, for instance, um, the Museum of Modern Art perhaps had an exhibit years ago of masks, masks, and they had nothing near the mask to tell you anything about it. So all you were doing was looking at the masks. That's all. And in some sense, that's great. You just felt the aura of what was coming through. You felt the buzz, the excitement, the visualization, the oomph of it, but you knew nothing about it. That's all you did. That's all you saw. Is that what the art is? Is that the best way to look at art? Then you could take the same grouping of masks and have something written about it that directs you. Okay. So you, in the case of the masks, you have two extremes. You have the masks by itself, and then you have something that is directing you and telling you something. You look at the mask and you find it fascinating, but you don't realize that this is a mask of um, the chief of this tribe or the um, the person who communicates with the gods in this tribe. You don't realize that at all. You're just looking at the mask. Okay. So if you push that further into someone like Van Gogh, okay, do you need to know about Van Gogh's life? When you look at a painting of Van Gogh, um, are you thinking about his life or are you just looking at his painting? So, Van Gogh, we all know something about his life. We all know something about his voyage. He is a extremely popular artist. So you just go into a museum, you see one of his paintings, and you're just looking at it. So are you informed also by your knowledge of his life, or are you just looking at his painting? Okay. Now, if we proceed further, um, let me go to this. Um, okay, so let's say we proceed to this picture here. Um, yeah, okay, so we go into the St. Louis Museum of Art and we see this, which is Kiefer. Okay. So, Rita, I think this is coming back to what you said. So, you see this. What do you make of this? Okay. Now, It could be informed by what you know about Kiefer, what you know about his life, his interests. But if you don't know too much about Kiefer, is what is in here communicating? You see on the floor the glass, you see these books, you see the lead books, and you see above it something that might be heavenly or heaven bound. You don't know anything about Kiefer. You're just looking at this, like the mask in the Museum of Modern Art. What do you make of this? Okay. Now, um, I remember going to the museum in St. Louis, and I happened to have been there right looking at this. And my son-in-law, he won't mind if I use his name and explain this. Jeremy was right next to me. And I looked at this and I said, "Isn't this amazing?" And Jeremy looked at me and said, uh, with a question mark on his face, "I don't know, I'm not sure."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so so then I looked at the attribution for this, and I'm not sure if I'm exactly reading the attribution, but it was close to what I'm going to read to you. So you look at this, think about what you're feeling when you look at this. I'm going to give you a minute or two just to look at this, think about it, and then I'm going to read you something. So look at this, think about it. I'll give you a minute or two, and then I'm going to read this. But what I'm telling you is really it's difficult to understand what is right or not right, or what is correct or not correct
Mm-hmm.
about looking at art. Okay, I immediately responded to this. Okay, so so I guess what I'm asking you is the meaning of this work in what you're looking at, or what you know from other acquaintanceship with the artist, or because of what you read next to the picture. So this is what it says nearby. In this work, weighing over 7 tons, lead book folios and broken panes of glass fill the shelves of a monumental bookcase. Okay, I should have mentioned this to start with. Um, 12 and a half feet, um,
Tall.
12 and a half feet tall. What? Yeah, 12 and a half feet tall, 27 feet
No,
wide,
it's the
and
other way.
17 feet deep. Okay, I think that sounds correct. Um,
But it doesn't look correct.
No, you sure
um,
it's not 27 feet tall?
no, it can't be. This can't be. Maybe it's 17 feet tall. Let's say it's 12 and a half feet tall,
Okay.
and I
What?
think I think 27 and a half feet wide and 17 feet deep. So so then it gives you a sense of how big this is.
Hmm.
Okay. So the lead books reference the centrality of learning to Jewish culture, while other elements of the sculpture represent ideas put forth in the Kabbalah, a,
Hmm.
collect, a collection of ancient Jewish mystical writings. The semicircular pane of glass suspended above the bookcase represents the Spirit of God, and is inscribed with the Hebrew words Ein Sof Or, meaning in infinite light. According to Kabbalistic tradition, attributes of God's light were divided among 10. Uh, According to Kabbalistic tradition, attributes of God's light were divided among 10 vessels not strong enough to hold them. The destruction or breaking of the vessels brought the divine into an imperfect world.
Hmm.
Though, though he had no first-hand memory of the catastrophic rule of the Third Reich, Kiefer's strategy is to open a Pandora's box of fascist imagery. Kiefer has made a successful career out of facing up to the political injustices of the world, particularly the fascist regime's atrocities that were committed against the Jews during World War II. The shattered glass projecting from the shelves and littering the floor beneath the bookcase recalls Kristallnacht,
Right.
the night of broken glass in
Hmm.
Germany, when civilians and Nazi paramilitary officers smashed thousands of synagogue windows and Jewish-owned storefronts on November 9th and 10th, 1938. The charred books reference the burning of the books by the Nazis, the destruction of wisdom. Burning was a method of purification as well as destruction, and so alchemy is a theme Kiefer often explores.
Huh.
His work is interwoven with layers and layers and layers and layers of meaning, with metaphors from a wide range of sources, from Jewish liturgy to history to mythology. It is filled with political and mystical meaning, references to the past as well as the future. Many have interpreted this magnificent sculpture in different ways. This is my understanding. Um,
What
so
are the
what?
what
What?
are the hearts? See
The
the
heart,
hearts?
the hearts look like they're from children. It looks like
Uh,
a children's class. But
mm,
so in any case, I tell you this because um, this is a bit of a dilemma. So what my son-in-law pointed out to me is what we have read in this, or are we influenced by what we've just read? Is it in this work? Okay. So I said, well, I know his work. I think I would have come up with something close to what was said if I thought about it a bit, but I go with it because I'm hooked on his work. I'm into it. So my son-in-law shrugs and, he's not sure. He needs more proof. So I say to him, what's fascinating about his work is that he is trying to come to terms with a very big, very serious idea. And who is doing that in the world of fine arts? I think very few people. Okay? Very few people are attempting to do this. And if you take the German sphere of who's doing this, it's really relatively recent in terms of responding to the Second World War, where I told you in the last class about Fassbinder, and uh, that came years after the Second World War. So I give him points for this attempt. Now, to make matters even more confusing, I hope you're understanding this argument or this
Mhm.
strain of thought. Am I getting through, Rita? Yeah,
Yeah.
because oh, and Rita, I'll get to what you said in a second. So to make matters more confusing, um, here's something I read in addition to what I wrote, to what I read already. Um, According to Public Delivery, a not-for-profit arts organization, this sculpture, which is called Breaking of the Vessels, was conceived out of a collaboration between Kiefer and Mordecai Omer, the chief curator of the Tel Aviv Museum.
Mm.
A new museum wing was to be opened at the time, and Omer wanted to commemorate it with an exhibition of both spiritual and artistic value. The work selected for the inaugural show was supposed to have some biblical connection or relate in one way or another to Jewish folklore, literature, or the Kabbalah. Breaking of the Vessels is so highly regarded that most art history textbooks today feature this dramatic work, prompting the historian Simon Schama to comment that Kiefer is, quote, incapable of making anything trivial, unquote. So this is quite something. This is way more complicated than just looking at paintings or drawings or pictures. Um, and last point about this is, if I remember correctly, Rita mentioned the intent of the artist. So I don't have images around with me right now, but the intent of the artist, I think, might make more sense in terms of literature as coming into this theme. But I have read so many articles by artists where their intent was a whole bunch of art talk which had nothing to do with um, what it was I was looking at.
Mhm.
Okay. So, how can the intent of the artist uh, be the judgment point? Um, for instance, this is going to sound super crazy, but I had the good fortune of being the recipient of a prize to go to Rome. The person who had the same prize in sculpture um, was a conceptual artist. So the academy in Rome, it's very, very, very fancy, like a mansion. And this sculptor, or whatever he was, in the back of the academy, they had beautiful grounds. And for his first project, he dug a hole in the ground. Okay. And he dug this hole, and then he wrote a whole series of paragraphs about the hole in the ground. And he wrote, he was investigating the void and investigating existentialism, and et cetera, et cetera. The workers who were there uh, really disliked the hole in the ground because they said it really wasn't a good hole in the ground. Okay, okay? But if intent is the judgment point,
Mhm.
then his intent was to discover um, a mystery in life where this void is, the drama of the end of life or the 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 missing things, etc., etc., by building a hole in the ground. So I must say, it is very confusing. And if someone has a way to decipher this, um, I would like to hear it. But I'm just throwing all this out to you because it stayed with me from last time. So I'm going to try to continue. I'm not going to stay with this, but if you want to come back to this
Yeah.
later, you should.
Mhm.
So I'm going to see if I can get to the next one. Okay. Okay. So here's a juxtaposition of Kiefer in his studio. Both you could see on the left all of the density of the works, and on the right, um, I believe what he's doing on the right is burning um, lead onto one of his canvases. Um, um, here's the theme of the last two classes. Van Gogh on the left, Kiefer in the middle, and um, I don't know where this came from, another shot of Van Gogh. The Van Gogh self-portraits are simply unbelievable, and you'll see some more later, but this painting and the others are uh, just amazing. Um, I'm sorry the one on the right is slightly out of focus, but here you have Van Gogh's sunflowers and Kiefer's sunflowers. It's a very interesting conversation and just beautiful on both counts. These paintings are not very large. Hmm. And um, last week I tried to explain or convey the idea that Van Gogh was quite a designer uh, of art, of his art, and they're beautifully designed and beautifully presented. Um, so let's go back to this. So here is Van Gogh on the left and Kiefer on the right. There aren't too many portraits of Kiefer's. Kiefer is mainly involved with landscape, and but I thought this was very interesting, seeing these together. I think that the Van Gogh painting is in the Courtauld Museum in London.
Is that a self-portrait of Kiefer?
No, I don't know. I don't know who it is, but it is not Kiefer. I'm pretty sure it's not him. Oh, it's funny. I don't know what happened to the one on the right. So sorry. Something happened to it. I, I this is the one on the right has a very pale turquoise um, gray in swirls around him, and it's quite a stunning painting. Um, I looked through these slides already, and I never saw it like this. So I juxtaposed the two self-portraits. Um, the drawings of Van Gogh are pretty astounding, and many of the drawings are done in pen, some in pen with charcoal, and they're created by um, feeling the turns and swivels and movements of the earth. Um, so they're almost, in a curious way, they're almost abstract expressionist drawings, but they're not. And in that way, they kind of echo Kiefer. They're done with quill, pen, and sometimes with ink and brush. Um, this is a detail on the left of the one on the right. So the one on the left is a detail of the previous one. And the one on the right, I couldn't resist, is my drawing. Okay. So I couldn't resist. And I don't like to intrude upon this class, but I couldn't help it. This drawing of mine took a whole summer to do. It's about 40 inches wide, and it's a field in Vermont, and it contains just about everything I saw out of the back porch of a house that we were renting for the summer. One summer, one drawing. Um, I think about 26 by 40. Uh, pen and ink, uh, similar. Um, I think we saw this one last week, the one on the left, and Kiefer does a whole bunch of paintings which have to do with particular points on the landscape, and they're denoted by names, and they might have themes, like where certain battles took place, where certain things occurred, and then he writes on the painting something to demarcate what this is about. I for some reason or other, I really like the writing on the painting. It seems so striking. And in actually, the writing unites Van Gogh and Kiefer. And again, to intrude, uh, I have a real love for writing, and uh, I guess maybe there's a secret reason that I like these two. I don't know. Um, okay, so I mentioned last week these books, which there are many of, and some of them seem to have no theme, some of them have a theme. Some of them, the themes are simply um, totally non-objective, like the one on the right. Some of them have celestial themes, some look like landscapes, and they are bigger than books, but not really big. And then there are bookshelves that contain these imaginary but very heavy books.
They're made of lead, Simon.
And they're made of lead. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And
Lead,
then he
lead
paints on
pages,
them.
lead pages. Yeah.
Does he paint on them?
Uh, I I think in some of them there's paint, and in some of them I I'm gonna guess it's acid,
Hmm.
acid that has eaten the lead away. They are fantastically seductive, and
Hmm.
I remember seeing a very large exhibit of Kiefer's work in Paris, and there was a separate exhibit at the Bibliothèque in Paris of these books. And it was just great. I mean, really an amazing idea, very striking. Um, so the books possibly are a repository of memory, a repository of illusion, memory, paint, history, and the image on the right kind of speaks to that. To get back to the way I introduced this to start with, if you showed this to a high school student in Pennsylvania or high school student in Iowa, the painting on the right, and didn't say anything, um, it's entirely possible, and in fact, most probable, that they would not connect or understand or even in their wildest fantasy think of what Kiefer was thinking of or what some of you have thought of as to what this is involved with. Um, Another intrusion on my part, um, uh, Van Gogh's world and a painting of mine um, about 5 feet high.
Can you talk about your intent?
My intent had nothing to do with Van Gogh. It,
No,
it,
in
it,
your intent with the
my intent, okay, I will talk about my intent. I shared a studio with a sculptor, and these shoes are the shoes of the sculptor. And one day I happened to see the shoes next to the wall, and I was very struck by how they looked. And you see the shoes have the identity of the sculptor on them. The caked up um, um, gesso and plaster. And then I thought of how would this composition go? And usually the subject matter in a composition is somewhere towards the center or somewhere off the center to the side of the center, somewhere in that ballpark. And I thought it's so interesting that the shoes are in front of this wall. So then I thought of like how high the wall could go in juxtaposition with the shoes. And I thought the wall and the shoes would be having a conversation with each other. Um, and it would be kind of transgressive for the shoes to be so low on the picture plane. In fact, so low that it almost seemed like if they came forward an inch, they'd be in the room with you. Uh, and then, to my surprise, people have said, oh, they love the wall. They like the wall. Okay. The wall is what's interesting, not the shoes. So that was my intent. Um, but I didn't think about Van Gogh. But then when I saw over years his shoes, I thought that must have been somewhere in my head, but I didn't think about it. Um, so these are two paintings of Kiefer. Um, this is another painting of train tracks, very moody, very haunting. And this is a painting, I don't know where this is, but it certainly appears as if it's a destruction of a city. I've seen this painting in person. It's terrific, really terrific. Full of grays and splattering of color and a big idea. Um, I used it a second time in juxtaposition with the piece that started off with.
Yeah.
And I kind of think they're interesting together, those two pieces.
What's the title of the one on the right, Simon?
I don't have the title. I'm sorry, I don't
Oh,
have it in front of me, but
no, it's very interesting.
I think you could find it. I'm pretty sure you could find it. Uh, if I was more organized, I'd have the title. I'm
No
sorry.
worries.
Yeah,
I'll find it.
that's fine. Thanks. Thanks. Okay, so now there's also another thing I'd like to say about Kiefer, um, which is that the first time I saw his work, which was in that exhibit in, I think, 1986 at the Museum of Modern Art, a number of the paintings to me had very much to do with the Holocaust and with the Second World War. And I felt that immediately, not reading about it, just felt it. And I see that in these two paintings. And um, I think they're amazing paintings. Um, very expressionistic, very moody, and real works of art. Uh, I'd say the same exact thing for this one. Very large painting. So this is the last one um, of this presentation, and it's called Ash Flower. Ash Flower. Um, I think that this painting is located at the Fort Worth Art Museum, but I'm not, I wouldn't, I w I'm almost sure that's where it's located. And it is an enormous painting. Um, his paintings are hard to reproduce, but the painting is almost all ash, all ash mixed in with the paint. So this is a very extreme painting, um, almost minimalist and maximal at the same time. Very close values, and again, a real statement. Um, okay, so I'm going to go back to being able to see all of you. Let's see. Oh. Okay. So, thoughts from any of you on any of which you have seen tonight, or the film that I asked you to look at, or the introduction uh, about what you're looking at or how to look at it. Any of those three or four categories. And I'd like to start with some people who I haven't heard from in a while. So, um, Susan, can I start with you?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. I'm having real computer trouble and with Zoom. I'm not quite sure why. Well, Simon, I'm going to skip all of your categories because I want to ask you about your own painting with the shoes and the wall behind it because it seemed to me as if there were shapes that recalled human beings there. Two human beings, one for each pair of shoes. I really loved it. I thought it was wonderful.
Well, thank you. Uh, those were there. I did
They
not,
were.
I did not do anything. I did not do anything to achieve that. The abstract
It
expressionism
was
was
there.
on the wall, was on the wall.
That's that
I
makes it even better. Even better.
I used my figurative impulses to say this is important. This is
Mhm.
You have to look at this. It's important.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it it actually it, it's a painting I wish I still had. I don't I sold the painting, and it's a painting that's been much admired, appreciated, and so on. And I'm not sure what more I can say about it other than that. Did you see one of the films?
No,
No.
no, I'm very behind. I have to catch up, but I will.
Okay, okay, that's fine. Let me see. Anna.
Yeah, actually, when you were talking about what you see when you're looking at any work of art, it made me think of years ago a course I took at Bank Street about teaching with objects. And one of the things you do with kids is when you go to a museum is just have them look at the object, whatever the object is, a sculpture, a painting, and say what they see, just be completely objective. And in a way, that original piece that we looked at, what was it, the breaking of vessels, made me think of that, because when you first look at it, it's just like, well, what is it? And then you bring your knowledge. So if you have a lot of knowledge about World War II and November 9th, then I think you get there. You might get there. But if you don't have that knowledge, you're going to bring something completely different to the work, but it
Well,
will be based on your own, whatever's inside you, right? Yeah.
yeah, I just to respond to you, I believe that there was a woman who did the art education program at the Frick Collection. I'm not sure if she's still there, but her idea was to bring in a group of people, look at a painting, have them talk about it, and not say anything. Okay, just let them talk, let them talk, let them talk, and then at the end, the curator or docent or art educator would come in and say things. Okay, then there's the alternative point of view, which I've seen is someone, you're standing in a gallery, someone brings in a group of people, and they start talking like crazy about the painting before you can even look at it. Before you can look at it, they're telling you this is this, this is this, etc., etc., and that's the two extremes.
Right.
I don't know. I can honestly say I don't know which. Well, in those two extremes, I think looking at it first is, to me, totally better. You look at it, you feel the vibrations. I always think that's better. In fact, if I bring people to a museum, I would get into one room and say, "You walk around for 5 or 10 minutes, then we'll meet in the middle." Okay, that's it, and you look first.
Mhm.
But it's an interesting, different point of view, completely different. Um, so I think I've heard from a lot of you. How about Sarah? I can't hear you.
Your mic is off. Bottom left. There you laugh.
Am I
Good?
there?
Oh, okay, good, good, good.
Okay.
I can see all of you now.
Oh, goody. All right. So, um, as I said last week, I totally was sort of waiting for this particular class to discuss these two painters that I love. And I think that one thing, if can you see my screen?
Yes, that's the painting. That's the
That's
painting that
that's a painting that didn't have a good image.
yes,
So,
make it a
uh,
little higher. Hold it up a little higher. Yes, that's the painting. That's the
okay.
painting. Yeah, yeah.
Um, so
And,
after,
and do one more thing. One more thing.
yeah.
Uh, You should move back a little bit. Move back.
Okay.
That's it. You got it. You got it. You got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, all right. We're all good?
Good. Good. Now you have to say something.
Yes. Okay. So, um, in thinking about about your point of, do you know, look first or do you read first? I believe that knowledge is power, but when it comes to art, I think it's better to just like sometimes I'll go to see art that I love. Like I went to the Louvre specifically to see Delacroix's Orphan Girl and just sit with her. And that was something where I knew what it was, I knew about it, I wanted to see it. In the case of Kiefer, it was, what did you say? It was 1978?
86.
86 at MoMA. And I moved to the city. I just got my first membership there, and I didn't know anything about him.
So you
And
saw the same exhibit that I saw.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I've lived here a long time, so I was overwhelmed, and I
Oh,
knew
fantastic
nothing
exhibit.
about him.
Yeah.
And so, what's interesting is that after I saw the exhibit, I wanted to know more. So I read more. But, the intrinsic feeling when you walk in, and I think if you're asking your brother, your son-in-law Jeremy, like you could move through the exhibit and a different painting could move him, within the exhibit. So I with Kiefer, I think just the size of the work, I knew it was about the, about Germany, but it was the overwhelming feeling and the textures and the movements. And one thing, and so I did buy the beautiful book, the from the show in Amsterdam, and the photograph, the reproductions are pretty good
You
in the
sent
book.
you sent me a picture of the book.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was,
It's this book. I have the same book.
yep, that's the one.
Okay.
So I've been exploring that, and the essays you were talking about last week were in the book. But I felt like last week, one thing you said about seeing the film and how wonderful it was that you have no idea about his studio. Like
Oh,
you've never seen anything like it, you said. And I was like, wonder what that means. And so can I talk about the movie if everyone hasn't seen it?
you how about a few minutes and then we'll go on to someone
Yeah,
else.
I mean,
And we
just the
come
fact
back. We
that,
could come back to you. We could come back.
or that he's, in the movie, the studio is so large that he rides his bicycle to get materials that he's making for this painting. I mean, anyway, I'm just I'm very excited about looking, and the thing of observing both painters, which I have for a while, is they both have very strong verticals.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like Bonnard and other painters that I love. So I'll leave it for now.
That's great. We could come back to you. Uh, John, what about you?
Well, I agree with Sarah that I like to see it, but maybe more accurately sort of feel it before I read about it. And then reading and understanding the history perhaps uh, enriches the experience. But that guy that was digging the hole, I can't imagine. I mean, you gotta, it's like you need a user's manual to appreciate it. And I think maybe I'm old fashioned, but I need something aesthetic, maybe is the wrong word, or something luscious, some texture, something that attracts me viscerally to sink my teeth into before I will even be inclined to go deeper. So a hole in the ground doesn't get it for me. It's a little too conceptual. Though
Well, we could do a whole class on that, but that would
we
be
could,
a compliment to
Carol shaking her head. No, don't do
it would
that.
be a compliment to the man who did the hole in the ground
Okay.
because the art, as the art disappears, the conversation about the art gets greater and greater.
Okay.
That's what the person wants.
Yeah.
There's just one little thing. There's an essay by Tom Wolfe
It's
called
8 o'clock.
The Painted Word.
Painted word. Yeah.
And in the essay, you see someone looking at a painting and the attribution is very small. And next you see him looking at a painting that's a little smaller and the attribution is bigger. And then it keeps going until the painting
Yeah.
is about 2 inches high and the attribution is 6 feet high.
Right.
Okay? And that's what they want.
Who needs the art?
Right.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Um, um, let me see. Carol,
Yeah.
can
Well,
you add any element to this?
Well, one of the things I thought of when you were first talking is that when you look at a painting, if you know something about the artist to begin with, I think it's impossible to get rid of it, to just look at the object, or at least I find that. I do like looking first, I agree, but that's what I thought about. It's like, if it's an artist that I know nothing about, then I'm just looking and feeling, and then I want to know something about them. But with an artist that you know something about, I can't block it out. I can't block it out and just look at the painting.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Hmm.
If you think about it, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
I
Alan,
think it's a really interesting question.
yeah, yeah. Alan, could you add something here?
Well, you know, in looking at those paintings, like I guess last week, and not knowing that much about him, um, I really appreciate knowing. And looking at those railroad tracks today and thinking, I hear a buzz on these, and I feel like, where are they going? But we know where they're going, which is not a good place.
Hmm.
And then there was the painting with the masonry arch, and that's almost like we
Yes,
got there and this is the end.
yes,
But I wouldn't have thought of that before. So in some ways, although I do, like everybody else, I do like to look at a painting for myself before I do the research,
yeah,
and particularly, and I've done that a lot in our class. But in this particular case, I think the background of this person, of Kiefer, is very important.
yeah, yeah. Very,
Mhm.
very interesting. More, you want to say something else?
No,
You're okay. Kathy, what about you? Kathy, Fieramasca.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with Alan that the first image we saw, when I just looked at it very objectively, I didn't know what that structure was. And the glass on the ground, on the floor, looked like pieces of paper. But I thought there were some kind of metal objects that were on the side. So I thought of a vice being compressing what was in the center. And then I saw the shards of glass, so breaking the glass. But I wouldn't, knowing the background then it gives a fuller meaning. So I think it's kind of maybe looking at it objectively initially and then reading about it. I think both. I think you need both.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Let me see. Kathy Titakis.
Okay, last week I knew absolutely nothing about Kiefer, and I saw the movie, and I loved the movie. I loved it. And in the movie, I guess it was the story about, I guess I don't know that much about Jewish heritage, but Lilith,
Yes,
the devil, the type of devil, and the destruction of the city. So I saw those tall vertical representations in many of the paintings, and in his studio I see that also. Those buildings, like floors of buildings stacked upon each other. And in that last painting that you showed, the one with the ash, I saw those buildings way over on the right, barely visible, but you saw those. So I think a lot of his work is telling us about the destruction of the cities during World War II.
Yes, yes. Which which film did you see?
Anselm.
Yeah. The director of that film is super smart, and any of his films other than that, I recommend highly. You should look at them.
Will
He's
do.
he's a terrific filmmaker. Um,
Thank
let me see, Len.
Almost too many thoughts to contain. Um, to start, the old saying, "You only get one chance to make a first impression," and the
Say,
same for when you
say it again. Say it.
you only get one chance to make a first impression,
Yes, yes. Well said.
and so it is when you encounter a new painting. You only get one chance to approach it as a child would. And it's a great gift when you come to it, dovetailing on what Carol said, when you can come to it without that context, it's a gift to experience it and have nothing kind of corrupting what you see. Now, that said, I found myself thinking about maybe 2 years ago, we studied Felix Nussbaum, whose most wonderful and powerful work was created when he was in a concentration camp. And the work is striking without knowing that, but the work is trebly, quadruply more powerful having that context. So different situations, different artists, that context has different value.
Right.
If I'm in a gallery with no descriptions, or the descriptions are in the corner altogether in a book, I'm kind of at sea. I'm kind of lost, It kind of scares me to have like a whole gallery and not be able to see anything about it. But at the same time, so many different experiences. Jackson Pollock, you don't need writing. You don't need a description of what you're seeing. Someone like Van Gogh to me is very, very interesting because when I'm in front of a Van Gogh, I don't really need to read too much because he has such a visceral impact on me that, like, I don't care that he cut off his ear, or that he was depressed, or that he suffered bouts of melancholia and madness and such, because the work is just so intense. So it's a long way of saying I think it kind of, different artists, your different impressions you have, it changes.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
I love the first thing you said. It's really, really terrific. Um, Dean, are you here now?
Yeah,
Dean, are you here?
he's muted.
Someone wrote to me and said that something about who is this mysterious person who keeps appearing and reappearing with
In the dark.
a helmet on his head with a light on the helmet. Okay, and I didn't know what to say, but if I was more
There he is.
together, I if I was
Oh,
Here
more
I am.
if I was more together, I would have said he's the Fiddler on the Roof. So Dean, have you heard this?
Yeah, I'm here.
Can you answer
Yeah.
any thoughts that you might have?
Well, I kind of missed most of the beginning presentation, but yeah, that's such an interesting question about right, the biography of the person that made the artwork and whether that matters. That's kind of the topic, right?
Yes,
mhm.
yes,
Um, yeah. So I Simon knows this now. that I made some music in a time of my life when I was in a very animated state, altered state. And so, yeah, basically when I was about 27, my bipolar disorder popped up and I didn't know what it was. And so I produced both music and art in that 6 month period, kind of an elevated period that afterward was totally out of character. It's like a different person did that work. And so I look at it and I'm like, okay, who am I even? After being treated and leveled and just being like normal for years, I'm like, am I the same person or who did that? Or is it safe to bring that out or what? And so now I think revealing that to a few people and feeling more open, I'm planning to bring some of that out and use it.
Oh,
and to and just to say, okay, you know what, more than me has gone through an experience like that. And just but part of my question is, how much do you reveal about the creation of it, the time when it occurred? Because that is probably interesting, to 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 look at the quickness of the brushstrokes, the abstractness of it, the hecticness of it, and relate it to what the person might have been going through at that time. I think it is extremely relevant, and I think it's just a way we can connect to our fellow man, because we all have certain commonalities in life. And
I agree. I agree. I want to
I
just
think it's great.
I want to just say something about uh, that makes what you're saying clearer. um, Dean uh, helped me put together something, and uh, it's a video of my triptych, of the details in the triptych, and he has the computer savvy and the skill set to do this. At the end of putting it together, he very casually and without saying too much said, uh, it might be a good idea to have some music on this, just as a suggestion to me. And I said, yeah, yeah, that might be a good idea. And he said, I'll try that and I'll send it to you. Okay. So I'm going to send that to you uh, later today or tomorrow. It's
Great.
it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Good.
It's his music, and it's his music in a certain state, a certain state, but it goes very well with my painting. Okay, I think, and I've gotten a lot of compliments about it, and you've gotten a lot of compliments about it, which
Yeah.
I have to pass on. But really, very
And yeah, yeah. And
say
when I think about it, it's no more wild than Simona's. She played the Concord Sonata, the Charles Ives.
yes,
That's
yes,
some pretty wild stuff that
pretty
Charles
wild.
Ives put
Yes,
together.
pretty wild,
you know,
pretty wild. Let
but
me
yeah, yeah,
let me go on. Let
yep.
me see someone else.
Thanks.
Rita, would you like to add something?
Well, when I asked you your intent in your painting of shoes,
Yes,
and you had a very deceptively simple answer, because we all know that a shoe is not just a shoe, and you were inspired to paint that from somewhere inside of you that you might not have even identified. There's some magical element to why an artist connects to a specific object. And we could say the same thing about the breaking of the vessels. If I didn't walk in to the museum in Tel Aviv, but that painting was in an art gallery in Soho, and I didn't have that immediate context, uh, then the books are not just books. you know, the shoes are not just shoes. They bring this whole history and
Absolutely.
ground history to
Absolutely.
whatever it is that's in the painting.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely, and so um, it's almost a little bit like to tell the truth. So will the real person stand up? Okay.
Mhm.
Mm.
So which is the real shoes? Which is the real idea behind it?
Mhm.
It's very unclear. I,
Even to the artist, or maybe especially to the artist.
well, I give you this example, the this painting of a triptych. Uh, I've learned so much about that painting in the years after I finished it. I've learned so much about it.
Hmm.
I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I learned afterwards, and I learned that all those images are connected, which I didn't entirely appreciate. Um, um, so, Kristen,
I feel like my head is spinning a little bit thinking about this, all of this, because I think what you were saying, Len, about so much of it depends on who and what. And um, I find that a lot of times I do like just walking into a place and looking without reading. Um, but very often I get more insight once I do read. Um, I also sometimes wonder about, some of the weirder paintings that are out there. And I think there's weird in an interesting way, and then there's weird in a way I don't get. Some very modern art, I think I would have to sit down and talk to the artists to find out what they were really intending, um, in order for me to even appreciate it. I mean, even Pollock, it's kind of cool. And you mentioned him, Len, and you see what's there and it's interesting, but um, I think knowing a little bit more about his life, you can kind of see like there was a lot going on for this guy, but I still am not necessarily um, drawn to his art. I like looking at it, but it's a very different experience for me. And I have never seen Kiefer in person. And um, to me, listening to all of this and seeing what you've shown us about Kiefer, um, makes me feel like his work may feel like a total experience. I'm looking at what you are showing us, and I think it's not pretty, but it's beautiful in many cases.
yeah, yeah,
And I'm particularly drawn to color quite often with art. And so that takes it out of the pretty category with his work because it's not that way. The scale seems like that puts you into an all-encompassing experience with him. And then also having the body of his life experiences to go along with that. Um, it feels like a big package
yeah,
um, to consider with him.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and then I think just a general thing about this question. Sometimes I I wonder about, especially, I mean, the Instagram age makes me think about this in a more pronounced way. But if you ask the question, why is any given artist popular? Um, and I think sometimes it can have to do with many, many, many different things.
mm,
And sometimes it might just be meme of the day that got carried through time. They became popular um, and that just continued. I don't know if I'm making sense with that or
No,
not.
you are making sense. Let me go on. Rich Norris.
Yeah. Let's see, what do I have to add to this? I guess on the question of experience versus understanding, um,
Yes.
I think it's really hard to keep the two separate. Even if you walk in and see a painting for the very first time and don't know the artist, you're still going to have whatever preconceived perceptions you have in your head about art, and that's going to color what you have in the experience. And then if you go and do some research about the artist and find out more about him and maybe his philosophy or what he's trying to do, that could maybe change your experience from a positive one to a negative one, or vice versa, or whatever.
Rich,
I think that you can't keep them separate.
do you ever? I wanted to ask this to Kristen, but I could ask it to both of you. Do you ever go to look at a work of art in a museum, and then you think, well, I should see what the attribution says, and then you say to yourself, no, no, I'm not going to look at what they say. I'm just going to look at the art first. No, no, I'm not going to look. I'm going to force myself to just stand back and look. Do you ever feel that?
Sure. Well, I mean, when I'm in a museum, I sort of try to practice that.
Yeah,
But
I like that.
especially,
I like that idea.
I mean, if I'm walking into a little gallery and there's some artists that I've never heard of, don't know anything at all about, I might start looking before, I mean, reading a little bit before looking. I mean, it sort of depends, try to make sense of the experience. That's the whole point, right?
Yeah. Philippa, uh, the
Turn
sound.
your mic. Mhm.
Sorry, thank you. Yes, along the same theme, um, I also like to look without a background first. And with conceptual art, I often feel it's a bit of a cop out, and I might be inclined to just walk by a hole in the ground. I might not, I don't always want to read to understand. I don't want to have to do the work. That maybe doesn't apply in all conceptual art, but I think I might feel that way about a hole in the ground. I found with Bruegel, with looking at the painting, researching really interfered with that. I felt the conflict viscerally
Hmm.
because I just wanted to focus on the painting and I couldn't block out all the other things that I had learned.
Yeah.
Kiefer, I was not familiar with, and got a very powerful feeling, and then did go to see one of his paintings in Toledo, and that's what my essay will be on. I don't always read about a painting. A lot of times it's just whatever I take away from it. And I think often, and perhaps particularly with somebody like Kiefer, whose work is very dark, I would have looked at that sculpture and seen broken glass and wire and the heaviness of the lead. And then if I read, then I would have perhaps said, okay, this makes sense. I think you can get a lot of that. And I think even artists themselves discover meaning in their own work, as you did with your triptych, while in the process, or even later, you look and you think, oh, that element makes sense to me. I know where that came from now. So it's a lot of back and forth, but I think, as Lan said, it is a gift to be able to experience that painting without any other influence and just take away and initially just what you feel viscerally. emotionally.
Anne Marie.
Yeah, I was just thinking that I think the works of art takes time to experience. So, like for me, yeah. So it was initially I saw the Kiefer paintings and I was just drawn to them. I think it was the Guggenheim where I first saw them, and I didn't know why. I still quite don't know why, but I just feel they're beautiful. They're just so, and even, but now that, so I'm sticking with, I see more every time I can, I see, his work. And now, so now I even have more information from this class. I'm seeing him in a different, I'm like experiencing it all new again,
That's great.
experiencing his work.
I like what you're saying. That's great. That's really great.
Yeah, I appreciate that, though. I appreciate that that you've exposed it to us in a different way than I've ever experienced it before. So,
Bruni. Bruni, you have to put the sound on.
I went to Chelsea in 2008 to see an exhibit on Kiefer, and I like the textures. I like the scale of the work. However, he didn't draw me in at all. I didn't feel impelled to do the research that I needed to do. I find he's very conceptual. He works with a lot of ideas. And at that time I was just too busy with other things and other artists that I was researching. I didn't feel like immersing myself in him at that time. So I like him better today as, through this class. I feel, yeah, this is an important artist. But the other thing, I was at the exhibit with a friend, and that's distracting to me. I like to go to museums when I'm alone and it's quiet, and maybe that had something to do with it. We were just kind of chatting about the work and not really looking at it. So that was my experience with him.
Very, very beautifully said. Really
Yeah. But I wanted to also say something about your work, because your work I'm drawn to certain artists, and I find that I've been looking at your work for 25 years on and off.
I came across a photograph of you and me in my studio.
In the studio.
Looking at a painting that I'm still working on.
Yeah. And that was a while ago. That's about 10 years ago.
No, it was more like 5 years ago.
5? Okay.
5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah. So you're one of those artists that I've been looking at for 25 years and more, maybe?
Yeah, well, that's very nice of you.
And
Thank you.
It's a mystery, but I'm drawn to your work, and I'm drawn to certain artists.
No, thanks.
Yeah.
Mary, you want to add something?
I just think what you said that about Simon Schama saying that Kiefer is incapable of creating anything trivial is really accurate. And the first piece you showed today really just demonstrates that with 50 tons of books. I mean, that's 50 tons. That's unbelievable. So, and I've just been I wasn't familiar with Kiefer's work, and seeing it and being exposed to it, I feel like I got a real, intuitive hit on what it was about. And it feels very strong. I identified with, I think, Len, you said it reminded you of the artists we study. The name's escaping me.
No spelling?
Yeah.
This
I feel
guy.
like it's much better.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and just what it's about. I mean, it's so heavy, but I like all the ideas and the enormity of it. I love that with regard to Vincent van Gogh, like that he traced Van Gogh's steps. And
Mhm.
here's Van Gogh with all this incredible beauty and color. And I feel like what he has done is shown like the scorched earth of what happened.
Yeah.
And it's just very powerful.
Um,
Wow.
did everyone go? Did everyone go? I wanted to read something at the end. So I'll read this, unless some of you, if one person wants to add something, great. Let me read this, and I think this is a good way to end. Uh, One of the students wrote this to me, and I'm not reading it for my part of this. It's really the student who wrote it. And I'm not reading it. I'm only reading exactly what she wrote. It's not about me. It's about what she's thinking. um, Simon, last week's class was terrific. I love the way you paired the pictures of Kiefer and Van Gogh. I feel as though I am on a journey through landscape. Studying Bruegel's revolutionary exploration of taking the eye as far as one can see, and then moving on to Van Gogh's dreamy land and skyscapes, and Kiefer, enormous in every aspect imaginable. Watching the class, I kept coming back to the idea of our internal landscape and the surrealist and absurd touch of Dean on the roof in the night. What is what is going on there? What is going on there? For some reason, it has me bursting out in laughter. Exclamation mark. Last night, I watched Wim Wenders' Anselm. I have a funny measure of if a film really works for me. Whenever I see a really, truly good film, it enters my dreams. And sure enough, all these landscape images and associations and German people came into my dreams last night. Thanks for the great class. So that's what I'm going to leave you on. Have a great holiday if you celebrate this holiday. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. And uh, I'd love to hear your essay. Choose one of the topics I gave you. And please send me the pictures. Okay, send me the images. And yeah, have a peaceful and pleasant holiday. And uh, really wonderful group of people. Thank you. Okay.